Have you ever volunteered to enter a place that almost nobody escaped alive? Not because you were forced, not because you had no choice, but because someone had to find out what was happening inside. In 1940, a Polish resistance fighter made a decision so unbelievable that even today it sounds like fiction. He deliberately got himself arrested. His destination was Auschwitz. At the time, almost nobody outside knew what was happening behind its fences. Rumors existed. People disappeared. Families received death notices. But nobody truly understood the scale of the horror. He intended to find out, and if possible, destroy it from within. His name was Witold Pilecki. When Nazi Germany occupied Poland, life changed overnight. People vanished from their homes. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, writers, anyone capable of leading resistance. The arrests came suddenly. The fear spread quickly. And somewhere in Warsaw, Pilecki watched it happen. Most people were trying desperately not to get caught. He was trying to get caught because reports had begun circulating about a mysterious new camp, a place called Auschwitz. Nobody knew exactly what happened there. That uncertainty made it even more dangerous. If the world remained blind, the Nazis could do anything. So Pilecki volunteered for an impossible mission. Enter the camp, build a resistance network, send information to the outside world, and prepare for an uprising. It sounded insane, because it was. Even his closest friends understood the odds. Once inside Auschwitz, people rarely came out, but Pilecki accepted the mission anyway. Because someone had to. Soon afterward, he joined a mass roundup in Warsaw. German soldiers surrounded the area. People were dragged into trucks. Families were separated. Fear consumed the streets. And exactly as planned, Pilecki was arrested. A few days later, he arrived at Auschwitz. The train doors opened. The shouting began immediately. Prisoners were beaten before they even understood where they were. Guards screamed. Dogs barked. Men ran in every direction. Some collapsed from fear. Others from exhaustion. Nobody explained the rules. You learned them through pain, and sometimes through death. Pilecki quickly realized something terrifying. Auschwitz wasn't simply a prison. It was a machine. A machine designed to crush human beings. Everything was calculated. The hunger, the exhaustion, the humiliation, the violence. Each prisoner lost his name, lost his identity, lost his past. Pilecki became a number, nothing more. The daily routine was relentless. Wake before dawn, stand for roll call, work until your body gave out, receive almost no food. Repeat, day after day, week after week. Men collapsed during labor, others disappeared. Nobody asked questions, because questions could get you killed. The camp functioned on fear, and fear was everywhere. Pilecki understood something important almost immediately. He could not survive alone, and neither could anyone else. If he wanted to complete his mission, he needed allies. So he began watching, not for the strongest prisoners, not for the loudest, but for the kindest, the ones who still shared food, the ones who helped others, despite risking punishment, the ones who had not yet allowed Auschwitz to destroy their humanity. Those were the people he recruited. Slowly, a secret network began to form. One prisoner, then another, then another. Every new member increased the risk, because one betrayal could destroy everything. And hunger made betrayal tempting. A piece of bread could buy information. A bowl of soup could buy loyalty. People broke under pressure. People informed. People disappeared. So trust became the most valuable currency in Auschwitz. Yet somehow, the network continued growing. Members shared food, shared information, protected weaker prisoners, and most importantly, they gathered evidence. evidence of what was happening inside the camp. Because outside the fences, people still didn't understand. They knew Auschwitz was brutal. They didn't know it was becoming something far worse. Pilecki needed a way to tell the world. The problem was obvious. How do you send messages from a place designed to keep secrets? At first, it seemed impossible. Then opportunity appeared. Occasionally, a prisoner would be released. Rare, unpredictable, but possible. Pilecki took advantage of every chance. Messages were memorized. Not written, not hidden. Memorized. Prisoners carried them out in their minds. Death counts. Conditions. Executions. Everything. The first reports reached the Polish resistance. Then they moved farther, toward Allied governments, toward London, toward anyone willing to listen. Pilecki hoped the reports would trigger action. Perhaps a bombing raid. Perhaps an assault. Perhaps an organized rescue. Anything. Because inside Auschwitz, death was accelerating. Every month, new prisoners arrived. Every month, fewer remained alive. The numbers told a horrifying story. Thousands entered. Thousands vanished. The camp was consuming people faster than anyone imagined. And then things became even worse. The Nazis expanded Auschwitz. New buildings appeared. New prisoners arrived. Construction never stopped. Something larger was being prepared. At first, nobody fully understood what it meant. Then the truth emerged. Prisoners began witnessing groups of people entering buildings. Men, women, children, entire families. They entered, but never came back out. Smoke rose constantly from the crematorium. The smell lingered in the air. Questions slowly became answers, and the answers were horrifying. Auschwitz was changing. It was no longer only a concentration camp. It was becoming an industrial killing center. Mass murder on a scale almost impossible to imagine. Pilecki watched the transformation happen in real time. And every report he sent became more urgent, more desperate, more detailed. He described starvation, executions, disease, forced labor, and eventually, gas chambers. He begged the outside world to act. Destroy the camp, attack the camp, bomb the camp, do something. But nothing happened. His reports traveled across Europe, through underground networks, through resistance contacts, through secret channels. Eventually, they reached Allied officials. Yet still, nothing happened. For the prisoners trapped inside Auschwitz, the silence was devastating. Every day they waited. Every day they hoped. Every day they wondered whether help was coming. It never came. By now, Pilecki's underground network had grown dramatically. Hundreds of members, connections across multiple sections of the camp, people working in key positions, people sharing intelligence, people preparing for resistance. For a moment, it seemed possible. Maybe they could organize an uprising. Maybe they could seize control. Maybe they could survive. Plans were drawn up. Weapons would be captured. Guards would be overwhelmed. Prisoners would escape. The camp would fall. At least that was the dream. Reality proved far harsher. The uprising depended on perfect timing, perfect communication, perfect coordination. Inside Auschwitz, those things rarely existed. A misunderstanding triggered chaos. Some prisoners believed the signal had been given. Others did not. Confusion spread. The operation collapsed almost instantly. Only a handful escaped. The rest faced punishment. Morale shattered. Years of preparation seemed wasted. And once again, the outside world remained silent. Pilecki faced an impossible question. If nobody was coming to help, what should he do next? Stay inside? Or leave? For nearly 3 years, he had risked everything. He had built the largest resistance organization inside Auschwitz. He had documented the horrors. He had warned the world. Yet the camp continued operating, and the killing continued growing. Finally, he reached a conclusion. If his reports weren't enough, he would have to deliver the message personally. That meant escape. Not an impulsive escape, not a desperate sprint toward the fence. A real plan, carefully designed. Every detail mattered. Civilian clothes, food, money, tools, routes, safe houses. Everything had to be prepared in advance. Failure meant execution. Success meant carrying the truth directly to the resistance leadership. The escape would begin at a bakery, one of the few locations offering a realistic opportunity. Pilecki and his allies spent weeks studying the building. Doors, locks, schedules, guard routines. Nothing was left to chance. They secretly created copies of keys, prepared disguises, collected supplies, waited. Then finally, the night arrived. Darkness covered the camp. The plan began. Almost immediately, problems appeared. An SS officer lingered nearby. Rain delayed everything. Minutes turned into hours. Every delay increased the risk. One mistake could destroy the entire operation. But eventually, the opportunity came. The guards moved away. The escapees acted quietly, carefully. A locked door stood between them and freedom. They worked desperately. The mechanism refused to cooperate. Time was running out. Panic began creeping in. Then something happened. An officer unexpectedly appeared. For a moment, it seemed over. The prisoners froze. If he noticed anything unusual, they would die. But he walked away. The chance still existed. They returned to the door, forced it, pushed harder, and suddenly, it opened. Freedom stood on the other side. The men ran. Across open ground, past buildings, past danger, past everything they had dreamed of escaping. Shots echoed behind them. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked back. They kept running, toward the river, toward the forest, toward survival. Hours later, they disappeared into the darkness. For the first time in years, Pilecki was free. The contrast was overwhelming. Silence replaced shouting. Trees replaced barbed wire. Fresh air replaced smoke. The world felt unreal. But freedom wasn't the end of his mission. It was only the next stage. Pilecki immediately began reporting everything he had witnessed. Every detail, every atrocity, every warning. He described Auschwitz as clearly as possible. The starvation, the forced labor, the executions, the gas chambers, the industrialized murder, everything. He hoped that seeing him in person would convince leaders to act. But reality remained frustrating. Liberating Auschwitz would require enormous resources. Military planners doubted success. Resistance leaders doubted success. Governments doubted success. The camp remained operational, and people continued dying. Eventually, the war ended. The Nazi regime collapsed. Auschwitz was liberated. The nightmare finally came to an end. Most people would have stopped fighting. Pilecki did not. He continued serving Poland. But the world after the war was changing. New rulers replaced old ones. New dangers emerged. And once again, Pilecki found himself opposing powerful authorities. This time, the threat came from the communist government controlling Poland. He continued gathering information, continued reporting what he saw, continued doing what he believed was right. Eventually, he was arrested, interrogated, tortured, accused of espionage, accused of treason, accused of crimes he did not commit. A show trial followed. The outcome was already decided. In 1948, Witold Pilecki was executed. A single bullet ended the life of the man who had willingly entered Auschwitz. The tragedy didn't stop there. For decades, his story was buried. Authorities tried to erase him from history. His reports disappeared. His achievements disappeared. His name disappeared. Generations grew up knowing almost nothing about him. One of the greatest resistance fighters of the Second World War was nearly forgotten. But history has a strange way of resurfacing. Eventually, the truth returned. His reports were published. Researchers uncovered his story. The world finally learned what he had done. Not just that he survived Auschwitz, but that he entered it voluntarily, not because he wanted to survive, but because he wanted the world to know. Today, Witold Pilecki is remembered as one of the bravest individuals of the 20th century. A man who walked willingly into one of history's darkest places. A man who built hope where hope barely existed. A man who risked everything to reveal the truth. And perhaps the most astonishing part of his story is this. He succeeded. The reports got out. The evidence survived. The world eventually learned what happened behind those fences. Because one man chose to enter hell, so others would know it existed.